Everybody, welcome to Oakland Unified School District. My name is Charles Cole. I work in the Community Engagement Department. And thank you all for joining us, for the folks that are joining us on Facebook Live, the folks that are joining us on KDOL, or whenever you get a chance to see it. Today we've come together to have a conversation with some young men just to talk about all the violence that they've seen that's affected our communities in the last week, from the 2 men being killed on social media that we saw to the tragic murders of those 5 police officers in Dallas. And we want to just engage in a conversation. I want to real briefly introduce our Superintendent Antoine Wilson, who was really gracious about this and really wanted to get in front of you all. We have our own police department here in OUSD. I'd like for the chief to quickly introduce himself.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Godown. I'm the chief of your Oakland Unified School District Police Department.
All right. And if you want to actually introduce your officer as well.
The gentleman sitting across from me is Officer Galloway, and he's one of the police officers that work here at the OUSD PD.
Great. So I'm going to start here with Elijah, but I actually want the young people to introduce themselves. I want them to tell you their name, how old they are, and where they live.
My name is Elijah Hames. I'm 16, and I live in Oakland.
My name is Glenn Faison. I'm 15 and I live in Oakland.
My name is Paris Irving and I live in Oakland and I'm 16.
My name is Darius Akins. I live in Oakland. I'm 17 years old.
Great, great. So I want to make sure that we go ahead and jump on in. Superintendent, I want you to be able to open us up.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank all the young men for being here. And students, ultimately, we know that you've had an opportunity to see what's going on nationally. Obviously, growing up in Oakland, you know what's going on locally in your communities and in your lives. And I'd love to just start off by just having you share just kind of what's been on your mind as you've been digesting what's been happening nationally, what types of conversations are going on in your own circles. It's really important to me and the Oakland Unified School District to just kind of hear from you and just kind of know what are you sitting with in light of recent events. And any of you can feel free to jump in.
Let's start right here with Elijah, actually. I'll make it easier for folks.
Basically, what me and my family was talking about within our household, we basically, we're like everybody else trying to find a solution to help fix these problems. Retaliation obviously isn't the key because that's not doing anything to help the situations be better. And basically that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of going to go off what he said because with the retaliation thing, but I think it is a way that you should be like let it known about how you feel about a certain situation, but there is a certain way to go about it.
Yeah, I agree, but I just have to point out, like, police should be more brave. Like, they had, think most people saw the video of Alton Sterling, and he was gunned down by 2 officers, and I feel like they were nervous, and they could have done better in the situation.
So personally, I'll just share quickly. My father passed away when he was 27 years old, and so even in my family, when I would tell people that, they would always assume that he got shot. And so that told me that people had become desensitized to violence, and it became the new normal, especially in Oakland. And so personally, I feel as though, of course, police brutality should never happen, or any person who is in a position of power should ever abuse it. But violence, period, or in general, needs to be eradicated, and it shouldn't become a normal. And I'm like Dr. King, I'm a pacifist, so I don't believe in violence. I don't think that's the solution. So just violence in general is just something that I really want to see end.
And I'm wondering if any of you personally, or maybe others, young men you know, have been impacted by not just the issues that are happening, but themselves personally, interactions with law enforcement in ways that these recent events draw up maybe negative experiences for you.
Well, it was like a week ago after I heard about it, and then it was like 10 o'clock. Me and my brother, we were walking down, and we saw 2 police officers, and I was like, we should ask him for a ride, and he was like, nah, because after what happened, he was kind of scared about it, and he was like, I'm not trying to get shot or nothing. So we just, the police pulled over and they asked us, did we want to ride? Because I asked them, I was like, I needed a ride. And they said, sure, but my brother was like, he didn't want it to happen, so we just walked away.
Okay. I mean, go ahead.
So, I mean, that's an example where you felt like.
And I thought about it too, yeah.
Where in that interaction, based on what's been happening, it changed the way you might have normally interacted with police officers, what I'm hearing in that story. Any of the others of you had a situation where maybe you would have done something differently had this not been happening, but felt like you needed to move in a different direction?
No, honestly, me and my friends just try to stay away from the cops at all times because of what we seen, and we just, try to stay away because we don't know what they could do to us at any appointed time.
So, we have Officer Galloway here. We also have Chief Godown. I'd just be interested as you hear young men share that story and just kind of reflect on the broader incidents across the country. I'm just wondering what your general thoughts or reactions are just hearing from these young men.
For me, it kind of hurts to, hear that because I believe that in the situations that has been occurring around the country, those officers reacted. They have different levels of training. No officer wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I want to go out and kill someone. It's not, I doubt that any officer, wakes up and has that on their mind. Officers get situations, they approach situations depending on what they have. And, I can't really, expand on the situation that's been occurring because I wasn't there. I don't really have details of what really happened. But I do want to say that I don't want young male blacks or anyone for that matter to generalize police officers as a whole. I want you to be able to come to me and be able to speak to me and try to get a feel for me, and not because I'm wearing blue. Because, I feel like a lot of times police officers get put in a box, and because of one bad apple or one situation that may have occurred that has questions to it, every police officer is that way, and it's totally not true. So if you ever see me, please approach me and, speak to me.
So, Officer Galloway, I want to thank you for saying that. I also want to make sure that in this conversation too, like as you watched what happened, because Officer Galloway, I think you made a really strong point around not necessarily putting, cops in a box. I also want to make sure that we're putting a statement down what it feels like sometimes and what it looks like is that young black men are being put in that box, right? Where folks are afraid of them. So I wanted to, that's one of the reasons I want to also push these young folks as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to go off that because it's like if you have a police officer who's not from Oakland or anything, from somewhere else that came to be a police officer out here, and maybe they had experience with one or two black kids who were like, kind of bad or something, with the whole attitudes, and then it's like if they go to the next one, they're like putting them in that box of like, oh, since this happened last time with a child like this, I might have the same outcome and things like that. And you're putting that title on them, on the whole group of like, oh, they're all the same and stuff like that.
Okay.
Elijah, looked like you had some. You were nodding when he said that.
No, I was agreeing. I can't really put nothing extra on.
Darius, any thoughts on that?
Well, I would agree with that. And so coming to Oakland, I've always had positive experiences with officers. I recently witnessed an experience 2 weekends ago where I thought that the situation would have ended tragically because of the way that the individual was interacting with the officer. But officers were very patient. They were very understanding. And the student, who was an African-American male, he ended up walking away free. And so I've always had positive interactions with police officers, specifically in Oakland, not elsewhere. But it's this natural thing whenever I see an officer or like I'm driving and an officer is near me, my heart starts racing. It's just a natural thing because I always think that, something may happen, whether they say the wrong thing, I say the wrong thing. I just always get this feeling that something bad may happen, so.
Let me ask you, students, what are some things you think either the school district could be doing, the city could be doing, maybe even at the federal level, the government could be doing to make this issue one that where you feel like we're making some progress? What are some of your ideas and some of your thoughts that would make things better? Any of you, maybe Glenn, you share?
One way I think is because at my school, Oakland High, it's like a program, the African American Male Achievement Program. It's like it basically like teaches a whole lot of stuff that not a lot of people get that kind of education. It's like they'll like teach you how to like kind of like how to interact with certain people and stuff like that, and then like they'll teach you like about what's going on with the police brutality and Black lives and stuff like that, and then they'll show you a certain way to how to like talk to a police officer or like something like that in case you ever have an interaction with them.
What types of things are you taught in there in terms of the interactions with officers?
Like say they'll teach you like your rights and stuff like that. So in case you're ever talked to wrong and stuff like that, so you know like everything you need to know in case of those type of
So like anything specifically that they would say if you're interacting with a police officer that you found helpful?
I mean, mostly it's just like don't be rude. It's like
Chief O'Down, I mean you've been in Oakland now almost 2 years, and you know, you hear these young men, but also I know you and I've had conversations around the importance of making sure that all of our students feel safe and feel supported and have positive relationship with all adults, including police officers. I'm wondering what you're thinking as you hear these young men.
I think they all eloquently made some real valid statements. I'll tell you kids one thing. The young man sitting across from you, Officer Galloway, when I hired him, the first thing I said to him is the color of your skin is not going to make a difference the minute you put that blue uniform on. And if you think it is not. You're going to be wearing a blue uniform and you're going to be painted with that broad brush like most police officers. We have officers in this country that deserve to go to jail. I'm not going to dispute that. We have officers in this country that make huge mistakes. But I think the problem that I have, and it hurts me dearly, and I've been doing this for 36 years, which is longer than most of you combined probably have been born, and I went through the riots in Los Angeles, and I watched the city burn down, and we will talk about this and have conversation, but we need to have that hard conversation and box it up and move forward with the solution. And it goes right back to what you were talking about, the African American achievement. A police officer is going to stop you, whether you like it or not. If they stop you, there's an avenue for you to protest that. There's an avenue for you to file a complaint. There's ways that you can, after the fact, complain about that. Police officers across this country are still going to pull their guns out when they feel unsafe. That interaction between the citizen and the officer is where the problem is. That is not going to stop. Those officers sometimes get scared in situations where they're uncomfortable with what's going on, and that interaction between the public and the officer, that's what we need to bridge, how we need to act accordingly, professionally, and how we would hope a citizen would act when there's a traffic stop or a confrontation. Does that make sense? The officer is still going to use of force. If you think that's going to stop across this country, it is not. Those officers are going to still pull their guns out, they're going to still be scared, and they're going to still end up shooting people. That is not going to go away, no matter what anybody tells you.
So,
And the hard conversation is, if in fact that's the case, how do we move forward? We always have a conversation, but we never do anything about it. Wouldn't you agree? Something happens on the news, we have a conversation for a couple hours, but we never do anything about it. And I think it's about you guys getting together with the police, talking about what you like and don't like. You are our customers. One of the ironies of the problem across this country, the communities that need the police the most, the communities that depend on the police the most, are the same communities that don't like the police. Does that make sense? It's not Dublin, it's not Livermore, it's not San Ramon, it's not Danville that has the problem. It's the inner cities that depend on police officers every day to keep them safe that they're having issues with, and that's the problem we've got to fix.
So Chief, so thank you. One, I appreciate you giving such a candid answer. I mean, two, I think there was a few things that I wanted to say highlight, and I want to make sure that we're having a conversation about. One, I don't necessarily think that that's okay. I don't think that you should have to expect to be stopped and to have guns and things like that pulled on you. And let me say that as somebody who's sitting here next to you all with a suit and tie on that works in the superintendent's office. I have multiple degrees. I was driving my car, and I got pulled over, and there was a robbery, and I had guns pulled on me. I had to sit on the curb, and somebody, a gun had like touched my neck, and just the way in which that made me feel. I think those are conversations that we need to lift up. I think that's one, and that wasn't right. I didn't do anything wrong, and that wasn't okay for me to be treated that way. I think two, and I am looking at this from the face of a professional, also as a young black man. And as somebody who's both his parents I've seen both of my parents go to jail and come out of jail, right? So my feelings about the police, even though I have great relationships with a lot of folks, there is a feeling of where I don't always feel that the police are there to serve me or to protect me. If that call did go to Pleasanton, it's going to be very different than if I called them to come to my house. And I think that there's a lot of people that feel that way. And I just wanted to, so I appreciate how candid you were in that. I want to also, I mean, we're supposed to be here having like a real conversation about this stuff, right? So I wanted to make sure.
I see Elijah and Darius both nodding their
Yeah,
heads.
so
let me tell you this. Everything you said, I agree with. There isn't anything you're saying I don't disagree with. Should
Right.
guns be pulled on young African-American kids driving down the car because they paint the picture of a possible suspect? The answer is no.
Right.
The reality is, let's get to that conversation.
No, and I hear that, and we can continue that, but I want to make sure, but since the young people are nodding, you can go ahead and jump in, Elijah.
No, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Even to the littlest things of, if we called the police, I feel like, in a sense, they wouldn't come as fast as if you were in San Ramon or Dublin. Also, I mean, yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I just don't, like he said, I just don't like being looked at as a suspect at all times. Like, for a young black man, I'm a clean-cut dude, you know. I probably look better than, or I present myself better than most actual thugs, you feel me? And when I get looked at like that, it's kind of hurtful in a sense, you feel me?
And you know the reason why?
What?
I never got a chance to talk to you. I didn't know how articulate you were. I didn't know how smart you were. I didn't know how together you are. Neither. Darius at the end, when I first met him, I told the boss, I'll hold a job to be a police officer. I don't care if he's 16 years old. I'll sit on that job for 5 years until he gets old enough. You guys are articulate, but we don't get a chance to see that. We drive in a car, we look at you, you look at us. It's that wall up, right? But we never get a chance to talk to you. I never get a chance to hear people talk the way you guys do in reference to your understanding and what hurts you and what doesn't hurt you. We don't get that job. The police department is that military aspect that's in your community who drives around and answers those radio calls all day long, right? That's what we do. But we never get out of the car and talk, do we? And then how many times you had a cop come in your neighborhood and get out of the car and talk to you?
Well, I'm hearing Paris. I heard Paris in his story indicating that his normal reaction might have been to ask for a ride. I heard that was his first thought, and then the initial. I mean, as a result of what's been happening, they kind of paused, like, well, maybe that we shouldn't do that. So what that tells me a few things. That tells me that they have had interactions, and I don't want to speak for you, Paris. Feel free. Maybe there have been some interactions that have been positive in the past where you felt comfortable, and something has happened now where you no longer feel as comfortable. I don't know if you want to jump in and share anything on that. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me say this. This is what I want to say. You guys see me. I'm in a suit, superintendent coming in. You know, what is this guy about? And I just say very clearly, you know, growing up, and I wrote about this last year from the desk of the superintendent letter I put out to the community. And I actually see both sides of this issue. You know, growing up, I did not have very positive associations with police officers. Now, I was around a lot of people who maybe weren't doing the right thing. But I think that regardless of how people associate and think about that, the fact of the matter is I was a young man growing up who did not have positive associations with police officers. I think it's imperative, as I think about now being a superintendent and being an educator, how do I create in spaces where young people and police officers, and just people in authority, whether it's teacher, police officers, whomever, can be in spaces with young people and recognize that regardless of how they look, regardless of how they speak, how they come across, whatever the case may be, that these are talented young people who deserve respect, and vice versa. It's important all the way around. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what are some things that we can do to position this work so that people see each other with respect? Because that's the fear right now. The fear right now is if I do everything that I'm supposed to do the right way, it still won't work as an African-American male, and I may still be in a negative space. And I know I've had an opportunity to be in spaces with Officer Galloway, Chief. I will speak for the city. I know that the mayor is in the city council is very serious about creating spaces in Oakland that the community feels like they have a different relationship with police officers and the police officers with the community. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what are some things, and Darius, maybe you take this first, what are some things that we can do to begin to create structures where people are interacting with our young people in ways, regardless of how they look and feel, that makes them feel like they're being respected?
So one thing, I've thought about this when I came to Oakland, but I never really made any recommendations. So one thing that I think will be important is that if we would make our officers, make it sort of a mandatory thing where they spend at least a couple hours each week at a different school site, and like they volunteer, or they just spend some time on the campus so that the students could really familiarize themselves with them, and they see them as human beings and not just as the people that they see on the news painted with the broad brush that you were talking about earlier. So if we could make some sort of adjustment in their schedules where they're permitted to spend time on a campus, whether it be elementary, middle, or high school, so that students get comfortable with police officers and not when they're in situations where they're being arrested or killed. So.
And I want to hear from the other students, but Chief, I know that you're planning on that, so I want to give you an opportunity if you want to share what you're planning.
It's done. They'll spend at least a couple hours a day.
Perfect.
They can do that. One of the issues we do have is we do have some people that don't want us on their campus, as you know that. They don't want a uniformed officer on there. I know Officer Galloway and all the officers have mentor programs where they spend a lot of times with the kids, especially in the middle and high school. So that is easily to take care of. I mean, I came here wanting to do that. You know that. We've had those discussions before, so I'm excited to move forward with that, and that will be starting the first of the year of the school. That's done. That's easy. No problem.
Okay.
I'm wondering, Paris, if you have additional thoughts on what are some ways in which we can move this forward so that we want to be an example in Oakland as to how we can begin to address this. Because when I see young people, regardless of how they dress or how they talk, what I'm thinking is this is a talented young person, and I need to get to know them before I can think anything more about them than that. Clearly, we have young men who don't feel that they're going to be given that opportunity. What can we do as a district, as a city, to begin to move this conversation forward so people do feel that respect?
Probably hold activities with policemen and other children, so they'll feel comfortable with the police and see them as humans, as Darius said.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know, gentlemen, either. You feel free.
Basically, I was going to say what Darius said. Basically, bringing the police around us more, that comfortable environment as the schoolhouse, not on no hot stuff as we stay, not coming in with all authority, but coming in like they're one of us, you feel me, a human being, like he said. So, basically.
And I'm wondering, how do you think about that from the perspective of some of those young people, some of the adults even, who maybe have real concerns around what you're suggesting? How do you think about that?
Well, I feel like they should be open-minded, because we are in a situation like this around the country, and if we get to actually know the officers and not put them in a box, because obviously it can offend the officers, because not every one of the officers are the same. I feel like they just be open-minded. You get to know who these people actually are, and we can go into a positive from there on.
Glenn, do you have anything to add here?
I thought how coming to the schools and stuff and meeting the kids and stuff was actually a great idea. And then, because I know it'll actually be kind of hard, because if you go to a school and the students are going to have like a lot of things to say, especially if you're police, and you might catch them saying like, something slick out the side of their mouth or something like that. But I think if you come in whenever you come in, if you come in with like the same respect and stuff that you have for them the first day you came in, even if they're going to be disrespectful and stuff, if you come in with that same respect and same love, then eventually they're going to start to like show the same respect and love to you that you're showing them.
Officer Galloway, you spend a lot of time at schools. Also, you're African-American male, you've seen what's happening nationally, but also you're a police officer. You're hearing what these young men are saying, and I know you've been in those classrooms. I know you've been on the school campus, you're interacting. I'm wondering what you would say to, one, any of the recommendations that have been shared by the students, or even just the question that I asked in terms of what we can be doing from a district perspective, from the city perspective, and then even nationally to move this conversation forward. Because one of the things that I get concerned about is people get nervous when incidents happen, and then there are voices from the community who want to speak out. I have issue with that, because to me, I would expect people to want to speak out. Part of that speaking out is fear that nothing's going to happen, that these incidents will happen and there's no recourse, that tomorrow I could be walking down the street and this could happen to me. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective, how you think about this.
I mean, the first thing that I do, I spend a lot of times within the schools that I'm assigned to, and that's part of the thing that I do. I love to interact with, individuals as a whole, and I get a lot of negative reactions, but exactly what you said is what I do is I continue to come back in there and give them that same respect, and eventually it turns around and I build a relationship with a lot of students throughout the schools that I interact with, and I truly think that it all boils down just to a level of respect. When I make contact with people, I try to respect them just as well as I would want, them to respect me. At times you get people that make certain judgment calls and you have to react to that judgment call. I mean, as a police officer, it's tough. It's not the easiest job in the world. I mean, you have like a split second to make certain decisions. And most of the time, that person that you're making contact with has a step over you because you don't know what that person is capable of or what they're trying to do. So it's a tough job, and I try to just continue to respect and keep that level-headed mindset when I'm making contact with anyone.
So, and I know that at 2:45 we got to release our officers because they have to continue on working. But I do want to ask some things to Officer Galloway, just for the own things that I know, right? So, can you talk a little bit about where you grew up? Because I think that those things kind of play a role in this. I think that you might have a different level of understanding because of where you grew up, because we kind of grew up together. So
I have that same it's weird because I had that same thought that you guys had. I mean, I grew up in the inner cities as well, and so I had that same thought, but actually I had a very positive interaction with law enforcement, which made me think totally different in regards to just playing basketball. I had an officer just interact with me. Actually, he was coming to a call because I was trespassing on the basketball court outside. He comes to a call, and he just stops. He looks at me, and he watches me play ball. And then he says, "Hey, you got to go." He hands me a card, and it's to the PAL League, which is the Police Athletic League. And from there on, I just began playing basketball. I traveled around the world with the police league, and it changed my perception on officers as a whole. And that's what the goal is in the inner cities, is try to get all people to just learn how to interact with police as a whole. And so that's my goal. And I used sports as a way to interact with a lot of students.
And I think that speaks to, and I appreciate you asking the question, that speaks to what I was trying to get at in terms of this work, in terms of moving forward, mutual respect. For me, growing up, it was one of those deals where, I had concerns, fearful, and I have friends who wouldn't go around police officers. So, asking that. But also, I came to, in middle school, have friends whose father was a police officer. And what I learned is from that experience is being in a relationship with police officers, you come to develop understanding. And it's just like anything else. So I appreciate hearing that story. And, when we think about this work in Oakland, in our school district, we have had our officers, also our school security, recently go through additional training, restorative justice training. They're also going through social emotional learning training as well as de-escalation training. That's an important part of the work. I know, Chief, in addition to creating spaces for officers to be on campus, we're talking about how can they be on campus interacting with students, whether it be reading, whether it be sports or whatever the case may be. I think that's important. So I just wanted to elevate that just from my own personal voice, is that I think it's extremely important that we do those things. But I do have another question for the young people, because nationally we have this issue in terms of relates to what's been happening to African Americans, and we had this incident in Dallas with police officers, and I know that was an issue that was also of great concern. I mean, we see that incident, and not long after a major incident in Orlando where we had a lot of people lose their lives as well. So I'm just wondering, from a student perspective, just if you had any thoughts on, just that perspective, because one of the things that I hear people doing that concerns me, and I want to make sure we don't do, is create a space where we have people saying, well, if I can't care about the issues that are impacting African American men in this space, and also care about making sure that police officers are safe as well. And I know, Darius, we had a conversation. This was one of the things that you were concerned about. So I don't know if you have any thoughts in terms of just this issue as relates to what happened in Dallas.
So one thing I'll say is that when I was younger, the news was like a scary movie to me. So I would always turn the TV off, and I never wanted to watch the news. So when I seen all these events that plagued our community, I didn't watch the videos of the 2 men who were killed on camera until Mr. Cole told me that I should watch them, because I don't know what it is, but violence makes my stomach hurt. I get this weird feeling. And so I didn't really want to watch it. And so in terms of violence, earlier I said I was a pacifist. So violence in general, I don't like it at all. And so violence is never the answer to any situation or circumstance, because it just makes the situation worse. As someone who experienced both physical and emotional abuse, I know that violence is just, it's just never anything that you would want to deal with. And then if I, for example, had a relative or a loved one who was an officer and they were randomly struck, and that would really impact me a lot. And so I don't want young people or people in general to think that killing officers and a form of retaliation is ever going to be the problem, because that's never the solution to any problem that plagues our community.
No, I totally agree with what he's saying. What the people or what the police did to those 2 males wasn't okay. But I feel like the retaliation part wasn't okay neither. Because first off, you ain't even killed the people that killed those 2 dudes. You just killed some other officers that was just doing their job then. And to my knowledge, they wasn't even doing anything to hurt anybody. You feel me? So as far as the retaliation piece, I don't think that's acceptable. But where I really go back, I go more back than just to police, to black males. It's black on black still too. We gotta take care of that first before we start getting mad at the police for even killing us, because we not even one yet. So once we get to be one, I feel that that's when we have the right to be mad at the police for killing our people, and that's just where my head is at.
Before the next person goes, I know we have to release our Officer Galloway, so thank you for having the conversation. And just as we continue this conversation, it's not over, but these conversations in general are not over with the type of, we're going to talk about a bunch of different topics as the school year goes on with a bunch of different groups of young people, but I just wanted to make sure that was actually something clear that was made to the folks that were watching. I'll let the young person continue where we left off.
Before I leave, I just want to say I appreciate what you said, because I have that conversation all the time with just my family. It's like literally as a whole, we have to change our perception as a whole and stop, committing certain acts on each other. And I really appreciate what you said, and I just wanted to say that publicly. All right?
I was just wondering, Paris or Glenn, you both were listening to Elijah in terms of what he was just sharing. I was wondering if you had, and you also heard Darius. I'm wondering if you had anything to add in regards to what they were just sharing.
I agree with some of what he said, but not all of what he said, because I feel like if something's gonna keep on happening, and because for previous things, nothing's have been changing and stuff, so I think like there has to be some kind of action taken for their voices to be heard.
Absolutely, Paris.
Yeah, I agree, because like I don't want to do retaliation, but I can't explain, but something has to happen so we could get our voice heard and people would hear us.
When you say something earlier, you were talking about some proactive means. Would you agree, though? Would you agree that the violence against officers it isn't going to solve the issue?
But and then I kind of like, if you look at it from a police perspective, it's kind of different, because you really don't know what you're ever going to like walk into. So you kind of have to like be on your guard all the time. And I can see where a little bit of the fear comes from, because if you're walking into a car, you don't know who's in it or what they got inside there. So.
And that was what Officer Galloway was saying. One of the things I think about regularly, I get an opportunity to interact with young people, and oftentimes get an opportunity to interact with just people, most of whom I don't know when I originally meet with them. The advantage I have is normally I can see them coming. I can think of very few things more difficult than to walk up to a house or to a car and in a position where you don't know what's going on. So I just appreciate you both elevating that, specifically Glenn talking about that aspect of that's challenging. It's a very difficult position to be in. I'm wondering, as you think about what's happening nationally, you see the protests, you see people speaking out on these issues, both against the violence against police officers and also violence against African American males and people losing their lives. I'm wondering, just what do you think when you see that type of reaction from people?
With the protest, I kind of don't think I don't agree with the protest, because especially when they go out and like mess something up and stuff, because I think if you're gonna protest, you shouldn't be messing up like a black business or something like that, something that's gonna affect your community even worse. And then there'll be like agitators, people who come from like another place, who will come and like to kind of like get them more riled up and stuff, so get them to riot and do stuff like that.
Darius, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, so the protest, I definitely support everyone's First Amendment right, but I don't understand how, as a community, when things happen, we destroy the communities that we live in, because when the officers commit police brutality, we don't go to the hills and destroy their property. We go right to our own local community and tear it up. So, I don't agree with that at all. And then also, I was agreeing with Elijah about how we, as a community as a whole, we have to sort of unite, because there's a quote that I like, a house divided cannot stand. And so if we, can't stand, then we can't, mobilize correctly. And then also, there was something I was going to say, but I lost my train of thought, so I'll come back.
But and I want to lift up actually what Paris was saying when he said it's hard to put into words. And that was on the precipice of him saying that something needs to happen, something needs to change. And that was right after talking about, there was a few different things we talked about, but Paris, let me know if I'm misarticulating this, but there's just some things that I'd heard. Like I've heard different parts of the conversation saying that we need to bring officers around so students learn how to be comfortable with officers, or we need to handle things in our own community before we can feel a certain way about cops. The one thing I want to definitely say, though, and I think this is what you were trying to get at, is that those things are not mutually exclusive. Folks can hold disdain for black-on-black crime and then police killing black men on camera. Like, I think that those are two things that a person can, like, hold both. And I think that it can kind of come off as insulting at times when we hear people say back to us saying, well, if you just focused on black crime first, then you can come talk about this thing. I don't think that that kind of lives in that bubble. And the other thing around
there, just on this point, I want to make this point just on that, just to build on the point you're just making. Because I agree with you 100%.
And I just wanted to make sure that got lifted up.
I think it's important to lift it up, and then also just to point out, just as students, as you guys are looking at this, any community you're talking about, the crime that's perpetrated against that community is most likely, most of them, is perpetrated from other individuals from the community. So most crime against white Americans is white on white. Yeah. And so it really is important to recognize that, to Darius's point, that violence in and of itself is not an answer. Retaliation in and of itself is not an answer, whether it's perpetrated against by a black person against black person or otherwise. We can hate both and need to do something proactively addressing both, and then also recognizing that what's been happening nationally, not just recently, but historically, around African Americans feeling that they are at a greater likelihood to be subject to violence from law enforcement. That is something that can be addressed while we address also crime that exists within the neighborhood. So I wanted to elevate that, and I want to make sure that young people, and I always say to young people, don't believe anything I say. You can go look up statistics. So please look up anything that I say, and what you will find is that I did not mislead you. That crime, it's not uncommon for crime within certain communities, particularly as it relates to white crime. The majority of crime against white people is white on white crime. Just as the majority of crime against black people is black on black crime.
Right. Yeah, and I think the other thing, what we were talking about, and I don't think there was anything meant by it, but there were terms used like articulate, being articulate, students getting comfortable with cops. And the thing that I want to say is about that, just how that kind of comes, how I hear that as a part of that, as being a part of that community. It shouldn't matter if you're an articulate person or not, right? You're a human, and there are certain ways in which you should be treated. So yeah, I do think that we need to become more comfortable with officers. And I was also a part of the same PAL league. I played PAL basketball. I don't even know if PAL is still a part, but that did have me be very comfortable with the officer who was actually from West Oakland. Officer died. I still remember him. But also, we need to make sure that our officers are comfortable with our students and are comfortable with our people. You know, I don't want to put the onus totally on who you all are. And I just want to say, as me looking at you, and I looked exactly the same way that you look, like from your hair to how you dress, like you're beautiful. And I don't want, I think that the images that we get from television and from all these news sources is that there's something wrong with us. And I want to tell you this from one black man to another black man, like, you as a human are like beautiful, and there's a way in which you deserve to be treated. And I'm really happy that we are having this conversation, and that Chief is actually, you know, he's taking those suggestions and like actually thinking of ways to implement those things.
So let me push back on you four, okay? You want to be part of the solution, do you not? So I ask you, and Darius, we've talked about this before, I've never done anything with it. I asked the four of you to be part of an advisory board for me as the chief of your school district when I run into issues either with SSOs or police officers or what's going on in the school. Will you guys meet with me once a month for an hour or two, and we can talk about these issues, and I can throw them at you, and you can give me suggestions? Are you willing to do that?
Yes.
And that is the problem across the country. And that is, we need to get more involved with the police. We can have this conversation, but we have to do the work together. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So you guys are telling me you'll do that, right? I'll even feed you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, so Darius, we'll talk about that afterwards, and we'll figure out how we can move forward.
And I'd just like to make sure that we bring in other groups of students as well. So,
Definitely.
we have an
Yes.
all-city council that represents Oakland's extremely diverse school district. So, we have students across the city. We have Asian Pacific Islander students, and we have our Latino students, and so on and so forth. So across the city that would be interested, I'm sure, in participating. So we will follow up and definitely make that part of the summer project that Mr. Akins is participating in internship, helping us pull that off, and working with Chief on that. I think that would be excellent. Charles, you had more, I think.
Oh, I mean, I think that I know I'm looking at some of the comments that folks are having around like the panel being black and things of that nature, and I mean, we don't run from those type of things. I think it was important that with the images that were on television, with the two men being killed, being African American men, and we've seen, and then we saw what happened in Dallas, and we saw a lot of people on the news, we saw a lot of people on CNN and Fox News, but we hadn't heard from folks that are walking the streets as like just young black men, and we felt that it was important to hear you all. And I think the other thing that's important about that is that one person doesn't represent black people. So we have a group of African American folks at this table, but there are a lot of different opinions about it. Like some said that they appreciate it. Like there are some folks that appreciate the way that people protest, and there are some folks that don't. Like we have different minds, and a lot of times I've been made to feel this way before at work, in college, and I can let other folks speak for themselves, but where you feel like you have to speak for an entire race. And so that was one of the reasons that it was important for this conversation to come together the way it did, but there will be more conversations with a variety of groups. So I just saw that being a question that was being raised.
Yeah, what I would say is this. I think it's important that we're able to not look at one issue and say, well, because you are approaching one issue this way, that must mean on these other issues, they're not important to you.
Right.
Okay. We have a situation happening nationally where we've had a concern around African American males being attacked by police, and then we had police being killed, and the argument was, well, it's because of Black Lives Matter and so on and so forth. And then I'm hearing from young people, particularly we have Darius in our office, but other young people just saying, hey, what are the opportunities this summer for us to bring our voice in? And I think it's always important to do that. And so we've done that, as you've mentioned. We'll have opportunities throughout the year for young people to talk about a number of different things. And so I definitely appreciate the perspective. And yeah, I don't think it's such a bad image for people to see four intelligent African American males speaking on an issue that is impacting African American males across the country and being talked about nationally, so much so that the president is taking time to bring rise to this issue. I want to appreciate the city
Definitely.
On this. I want to mention this because I know that the city is going to be hiring a police chief. The mayor is interested in involving young people from throughout the city in playing a role in helping and in the process of selecting next police chief in Oakland. And so just as the chief had mentioned that he's interested in being in conversations with you young men, please know that the mayor is interested as well, and not just you young men, but youth representing Oakland. And so she's interested in that as well, and I wanted to mention that to you as that process gets kicked off, that that's an opportunity for you to be involved as well. I know that the city of Oakland, city council, and just the leaders over there in the city are also interested in this, and I just want to appreciate the city because people did come out and they did protest. I thought they behaved themselves in ways that were productive. I believe that the I believe that the police handled themselves very well as relates to addressing and creating spaces for people to protest, but at the same time get involved productively. I know all across the city that there are these spaces, and it's important that we provided the space for you as well and recognize that we need to do that, and we'll continue to for everyone to get involved. Students, I'm wondering if there are any questions or any last thoughts you might have for myself, anything that, whether it be myself, school district, school board, as it relates to any of these topics. The main thing for us, my main goal, I'm just completely not apologetic about this. My goal is every kid graduate, every kid go on to post-secondary. That's some type of college and go pursue a career of their choice. That's my interest. I don't care what color you are, that's what I want. And there's a lot that we need to do as a district to make sure that happens for all young people. And so I just want to make sure that I provide you an opportunity to share or ask me anything or tell me something that you think that we can do as a district to move this forward, because ultimately I believe that if we do create a district where young people are graduating and having that type of success, you're going to be the people sitting in these seats, you're going to be the people making the decisions and working with us, and then eventually replacing us and creating the type of society where we're not needing to have these types of conversations in reaction to things that have happened nationally. So anything that you might want to ask or maybe share for me, or just the district as a whole as relates to any of these issues.
I guess I just want to thank everybody for this opportunity to speak out and show our different perspectives of how we feel. You feel me? And that's
Okay.
And then I just wanted to share, so I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but when I watched those videos of the killings, I tried to remove myself as much as possible, and I said, so how would I internalize this? And so this is just my opinion, but I would assume that African American males, when they see the constant violence that plague our community from police officers, I would imagine that they would internalize that as though I could be doing absolutely nothing, or I could be doing the right thing, and I'd still end up dead. So I might as well do something that would be, appropriate for me to have that result. And so I think that we just, we really need to look at the mindset of not just the people that are being killed, but also the police officers. So we need to make sure that we provide services for officers to clear their minds, to sort of relieve their stress. A therapist of mine always told me that every therapist needs a therapist, and so officers encounter so much and see so much and deal with so much, and so they need some sort of outlet to release all of the poison that they experience. So, yeah.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any last words?
I just want to say thank you for letting me share my opinion.
I kind of agree with how they said this right here was a good thing that we did, letting the youth's voice be heard.
Well, thank you. As I mentioned, we and as Charles mentioned, I want to appreciate Charles. I want to appreciate Darius for reaching out to me. Certainly want to appreciate the team chief and Officer Galloway. I just want to say this as relates to Oakland Unified School District. Our vision is that every student thrives. We want to be a part of the solution. What that means is we want students to graduate college, career, and community ready. The community part is an extremely important piece here. I believe that as we have these conversations and we look to determine right and wrong, I think it's important that we recognize that the overwhelming majority of people in this country, regardless of their race, are good people. They're good citizens. They do exactly what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do. They make mistakes, and because we all make them, and they deserve to be treated with respect when they go through that. The overwhelming majority are good people. And similarly so, the overwhelming majority of police officers are made up of those people out there to do the right thing. I think more times than not they do. I think we can look at these examples and say that there are certainly systemic issues that we need to address. And and I think it's important, as Chief Godown mentioned, that we don't look at these incidents and have them happen and talk about them for a day or two, a week or two, and then move on to the next thing. But we really are looking at how we use this to improve ourselves and improve the job that we do. And so, as the superintendent, I want to make sure that I am pledging to say that we are going to continue to have conversations, not just as it relates to these issues, but continue to have conversations relates to issues that are important to youth, that are important to the city, and make sure that we are part of the solution in helping elevate youth voice to help us move to be a better school district in accomplishment of our vision that every student thrives. So thank you for being here. You could have been doing anything this summer. Stay safe. Make sure you continue to make good decisions, and I just appreciate you for taking the time to be here for this conversation.
And I just wanted to close us out. And I thank you for going through the list of thank yous. There's a few more folks that we need to thank, but I definitely want to start with thanking you young people for coming out. I mean, this was huge. It was the first one. You all are pioneers, and just by you being here, I mean, that just shows the leadership that you have, because you could have been doing a whole lot of other things. I want to thank student board director Darius Akins, who took such a huge leadership role in making this all happen and making this possible. Superintendent, thank you for being open and willing and wanting and demanding to have this conversation. I mean, it's really important, and I can assure you it was incredibly important to him. And I also want to make sure I thank our school board president, James Harris, and our assembly member, Tony Thurman, who wanted to be a part of this. They just couldn't. Their schedules didn't allow for it, but they were extremely supportive, and we're really sad that they couldn't be here. Mario Capitelli, who runs all of the electrical stuff here and technical things here. We asked him to do it on really short notice, but I really want to thank him. And you can find this on Facebook. You can go on our Twitter page, which is @OUSD News. And the hashtag for this conversation has been #OUSD United. So we will be able to go and compile all the comments and questions that people had there. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for coming out. And I think that's it. All right.
Thank you.